Now, as far as the baseball is concerned, today's a big day, as you pointed out. Today is the proposal day. Today is the day that the owners will give the players some sort of financial proposal to see if we can get this thing going. Now, they still have plenty of time. It's May 26th, so they still have probably, by my calculations, somewhere between 10 and maybe 12 to 14 days to figure this thing out, and then they can start playing baseball. It looks like most likely, at least New York is going to do this. The Mets and the Yankees are going to start down in Tampa and Port St. Lucie again and restart up there and then come back home. But hopefully that will get through, because I do believe basketball is going to get through, and I do believe that the NHL is going to get started here. So baseball would be the one that I think has the biggest questions right now as they haggle over the money, the proposal, and everything else. And for the last 10 days or so, I guess for most of us, it's been back and forth in the media as to who we think is correct and who we think is not correct and whose side we're on. And, of course, we're against the players. Look, we got Noah Syndergaard. He can't even pay his rent. I feel bad for him. It's a $27,000 a month rent. That's tough. That's tough when you can't pay your rent.
Right, and Noah Syndergaard, in true Noah Syndergaard fashion, the story goes out there, people start tweeting him about it, and then he starts firing back angry tweets at the tweeters. So he just makes a situation that we were all paying attention to. He just blows it up. Now everybody's paying attention to it. But I think people will forget about Noah Syndergaard's rent deal once this Major League Baseball deal is either struck down or agreed upon this week. Now, I think that both sides, this is what you keep hearing, both sides understand how important it is to play, and more importantly, how bad it would be for the sport if this thing fell apart because of financial reasons. And that's the only reason why it would fall apart. And they could give you some sort of nonsense about how, it was the health side of it, we don't want to put ourselves at risk, and this and that. It's not going to be that. What it's going to be, if it falls apart, it's going to fall apart because of money. So I believe when I hear this from all sorts of writers, because we talked the other day about how some writers are on the player's side, some writers on the owner's side, one thing that seems to be a clear message is that both sides understand that if this thing falls apart because of money during this time, that is going to be a devastating blow to the sport of baseball.
The other thing that we heard last week, too, is also Governor Cuomo saying, okay, New York State sports can start. Start your training camps can open, everything else. Here's what I worry about with that particular statement is I thought we were doing this all on a regional basis. I thought there was some sort of regional task force that was going to say, okay, together we're going to go ahead and open our facilities, because I have not heard Governor Murphy say that at all, and that would include the Jets and the Giants. Obviously, Governor Cuomo includes the Bills in the NFL. It's the two baseball teams, and, of course, it's the three hockey teams. Most likely two of those three hockey teams will end up playing, and then the two basketball teams. And one of those teams may not even make it if they decide in the NBA to go to a 1-16 format, which would be going into the playoffs right away and doing it in a bracket-style thing, which is something that's being explored and talked about as well, which is something that the commissioner has wanted for a long time. Now, the only reason he would get what he would want, 1 through 16, is because they would all be playing down at Disney and all the teams would be in the Eastern time zone. Most of the times the Eastern Conference owners do not want to do 1 through 16. Number one, they want to stay away from the good Western teams. And number two, they want to be able to control their start dates, in their own buildings. And they like the Eastern Conference time zone. So this would be the one area where Adam Silver would get his wish, at least to test it out, if they wanted to come back under those circumstances where only 16 teams would come back and they would go 1 through 16 and they would start the playoffs right off the bat down at Disney. So, that makes some sense. That could be getting a little bit of traction. The NHL is definitely going to do a 24-team deal. We talked about this now for about a month. That's going to happen, and like I said earlier, late last week, it would be the Islanders and the Florida Panthers and the Hurricanes versus the New York Rangers, and they'll get it started here probably, I would think, here in the beginning of June, because most of the states...
Beginning of June? Wow.
Well, when I say not starting to play, but that would be, they'd have a 3-week ramp up.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? So they would open their facilities. Guys would be able to go in, maybe 6 or 7 at a time to go work out, to maybe even get some skating in, because that's the one thing that, obviously you have to do when you're playing hockey. You got to skate, and these guys have not been on skates. But I guarantee you, somewhere, some guys have got on ice somehow. I don't know where. Could be abroad. And that's the other thing that's happened here now, that the U.S. government has signed an order to allow foreign-born players to come back to this country. So no matter what major sport it is, they now can come back to the United States unfettered by the U.S. government. So that's something I think is starting to happen, if it hasn't already happened, where the teams are starting to call back their international players.
So I know that you love Pierre Maguire of NBC Sports.
Oh, yeah.
He's a friend of yours, but I saw him have more of a negative take on all of this, which was surprising. And he said that there's still many hurdles and don't get excited about it. And, yeah, the money is one thing, but there's a lot of things that have to be worked out. And he threw out late July. He gave us a late July start date, which I didn't like to see. It was still, he didn't say it wasn't going to happen, but he didn't have as much of an optimistic view on it starting in early July like others did.
Well, I think they're going to get on the ice sometime in June. I would think somewhere mid-June. And then it comes down to, how many days do they feel like they need on the ice? How many practice sessions do they need? Is anybody going to be testing for COVID at that point in time? Testing positive, for COVID, because they will be testing. And it'll be interesting to see, how, each of these leagues handle that thing as well. So all I know is that I feel like we're getting close. I feel like there's momentum that is building. I hope for Major League Baseball's sake that they can come to an agreement here relatively shortly and then all of a sudden start getting everybody ramped up. I would love, like a July 4th opening date. That would be great. America's back. Baseball's back. It's back on July 4th. That would be kind of a cool thing, I would think, for them.